Thank you for joining DataBank for this webinar. My name is Christian. I am the Events and Sponsorships Manager for DataBank, and we're so excited to welcome you. Today, our Chief Information Security Officer, Mark Haupt, will be speaking to you about security awareness and how to protect your organization's data from destruction, loss, modification, theft, and disclosure. At the end of the webinar, we'll be opening up to a live Q&A session with Mark, so please feel free to submit any questions you have into the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Thank you again for joining us. I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mark so he can introduce himself, and we'll go ahead and get started. All you, Mark.
All right. Thank you, Christian. My name is Mark Haupt, and I am the Chief Information Security Officer at DataBank. I've been with DataBank for almost 7 years, getting really close to 7 years, which is very long in the tooth for any CISO in their position. So I'm proud of that. I have been in the security field for over 30 years and hold a number of different security technical certifications and also a master's degree in information security and assurance. So I look forward to sharing with you some of this experience that I've gained over the past 30 years and some of it even where I've failed and have been able to fail forward and allowed me to learn from my own mistakes. I can share that with you. So let's get started and let's talk about a couple of the questions that we'll answer here. First of all, we're going to talk about what is and what should security awareness be. There are a lot of different ideas out there and different thought processes on what security awareness is. Then we're going to talk about at some point through this process about how often we should conduct security awareness training. Some people believe that it should be a checkbox type of situation and done once a year and be done with it and go away. But others, there's a viewpoint that we could do security awareness all the time. So we're going to talk about that and work through that. We're also going to lead you to areas where you can find content and create your own internal security awareness training plan if you're in an organization that has not had success with online platforms or other platforms that are available, or is just frankly doesn't have the budget to put together a software-based purchase, commercial off-the-shelf type of product in order to do security awareness. You can still do this effectively with your own product. So let's take a look at, first of all, what is security awareness? Security awareness can be viewed in many different ways, and all too often it is viewed as a checkbox for an auditor, so you can get that little mark off there that says everybody's done their security and awareness. But it could be your best defense. Really what security awareness is, if you look at it in the right mindset, it is a strategy that's used by any organization, by us individually, even in our own lives, to prevent and mitigate risk within the organization. So what this means when we boil it down to is that if we are aware of security flaws and security problems that exist out there, we will be more apt to move away from those. We will be more apt to report them if we see them, or even challenge someone if they themselves are presenting a security risk by something that they're doing. And we see this, the interesting part is we see this happening in our day-to-day lives. If we saw a small child walking into the middle of the road, we would not hesitate to rush out and grab that child and pull them from the danger, and then certainly present them to their parents or present them to their guardian and give that person a piece of our mind, to give that person, whether that be in an angry way because the person wasn't paying attention and doing their job as a parent or a guardian, or perhaps in more kind way of saying, hey, maybe perhaps if you put a little fence up here at the end of your driveway, your child would not end up in the road or something along those lines. So we do this as part of our lives already, but yet for some reason when we come into the office, we don't believe that it's something that we need to necessarily do unless you're in a security role and security position. So one of the things I want to implore upon you is let's no longer look at security awareness as a checkbox for an auditor. Let's look at it truly as we are pulling the organization back from the brink of stepping into the middle of the road and getting hit by the bus. Let's literally take a look at that and put the security risks in front of the people that are actually performing the jobs that are risky or performing the situations that could put our organizations at risk, and teach them to be better at what they do. That should be our primary strategy, is to come alongside of our fellow workers and show them where they need to have improvement and where they need to do better in their job, in just the same manner we would if we were to pull a child out of the road and present them back to their parents. It is, in some cases, depending on the type of business we're in, and that is many businesses these days, the risk to our data, the risk to our national security, the risk to the livelihood of our organization, and therefore our own paychecks, is just as important as pulling that child out of the driveway, out of the road, and sharing them back with their parent with some much needed advice. So our strategy should be to prevent and mitigate the risk with any type of security awareness training program that we put in place. So why do we need security awareness training? We've kind of talked about that in the previous slide, but let's just kind of look at some things that we may not realize of why we do need security awareness and training. First of all, is that human error is involved, depending on which researcher you ask, anywhere from 70 to 90% of security breaches. Now, some people would err towards the 70% side because a hacker would be the ultimate attacker that comes in and causes the breach. But in almost every situation, if you go back and look, it's a result of a bad security practice that someone did, an error that they made, whether an error in judgment or an error in fact of not applying a patch or something along those lines. All the ransomware situations that I've ever been involved in have been because of human error. 100% of them have been involved because of human error. Now, if you think of that, and we replicate that all across every one of the ransomware situations that we've heard in the news and been involved in or been part of over the past couple of years, if that were to hold true even at the 90% level, that every single ransomware situation was a result of human error in some way, shape, or form, then think about how much that human error being removed from the process, or the person being trained not to cause that error, could have resulted in a much less or much reduced ransomware attack surface out there. So human error, depending on who you talk to, 70 to 90% of the breaches are a result of that. Whether it be you didn't patch on time, you didn't patch at all, you've decided to make the choice, the errored choice of using a particular software that is 10, 20 years old because you just don't want to pay to have the underlying application rebuilt to more modern standards. All of those are considered human error, even if they are deliberate decisions that are made. So another reason why we should consider security awareness training is because it builds a culture. All too often security is viewed as the no culture. It is viewed as the you can't do this, as a preventative, as a gate that you have to go through, as a situation that is not wanted. In fact, people who do my jobs, CISOs, are often referred to in a tongue-in-cheek, joking type manner as the CIS no. And that's one of the things I try to do, is not say no. And I'm trying to build a culture where security says yes. But here is how we should do that properly in order to prevent the errors, in order to not make the mistakes that result to the breaches. So security awareness and training can build a culture from that perspective. It can also build a culture from the perspective of allowing more eyes and more ears involved in the security process. If you're an organization of, let's say, 700 people that it can only afford to have 5 or 6 security people on staff, wouldn't it be nice to go out and train the other 695 people within the organization to be your eyes and ears that would help you point your specialist to situations that might need to be resolved or might need to be dealt with with the true security mindset behind it? Boy, I know that is a factor, a huge factor in the culture that I'm building at DataBank, that allows all of our employees to understand security, understand what I'm looking for, understand what I keep my eyes and ears out and open for, so that they can do the same and kind of say, hey, over here. It's no different than if you were at home. Again, you're bringing it right down to the personal level. If you were at home and your neighbor is gone and you saw somebody sneaking around the outside, are you going to sit back and do nothing while you're on the deck and watch that person sneak around? Or are you going to potentially confront that individual because you're the eyes and the ears? You know that person doesn't live there. Or maybe if they look really nefarious in their activities, are you not going to pick up the phone and call the police officers and ask them, the professionals, to come and take a look at it and see what's going on? Of course you would. You would probably do so even if you hated your neighbor, simply because you don't want that person sneaking around your home and snooping around in your activities once they're done snooping around your neighbors if you don't like them. So certainly we are needing more eyes and ears. You know, there's a saying within the TSA and otherwise that says, if you see it, report it. If you hear it, report it, kind of thing. So that's kind of what we're looking for out of security awareness training. We're not trying to make security professionals out of people. All we're trying to do is make them aware of what we are looking for, what we are listening for, so they can help bring us and fine tune us into a better understanding of what's going on in the organization. Security awareness training also provides customer confidence, not just because we can report the fact that we do have a robust SAT program, but also, again, you could tell these are all building one on top of the other. If the eyes and the ears are all tuned within the entire organization to learn what security is, what security wants to know and the problems that might exist out there, and it's built into our culture, and that we're trying to remove human error, you can understand how customer confidence can be up through the roof, knowing that that type of thing occurs within your organization. It is also socially responsible in this day and age, with all the different types of ransomware situations and different kinds of attacks go on. Again, going back to the scenario where you've got your neighbor and somebody sneaking around the house, just like it would be socially responsible for you to pick up the phone and call the police officers and ask them to come and investigate that, the same thing exists with cyber. And not only is it socially acceptable to watch out for your neighbor and watch out for their back in a cyber world, but in some respects, you're also watching out for your country, because the cyber attacks that are occurring are frequently coming from what we call APTs, advanced persistent threats, or that's another name for nation state attackers. Let's face it, there are adversaries that we have out there that are trying to gain access to our intellectual property, that are trying to harm us in various ways and bring us to our knees through the cyberspace, because it's not viewed as what's called kinetic warfare. It's not viewed as an actual bomb that's dropping, or where there's actual harm that's given. It's almost viewed, a cyber warfare type of situation is almost viewed as an electronic game that some of the kids play nowadays. You can push reset and it will go back to the way it was. And that's not entirely true. It's not accurate, but that's how it's viewed, unfortunately. And security awareness and training can help us be socially responsible in reporting those type of events that are going on out there. Believe it or not, it also has a good impact on the employee well-being. Now, you may be asking, well, how in the world can that be? But if you think about customer confidence, you can also have employee confidence. If an employee knows that the organization that they're working for is valuing their input and valuing their sixth sense and understanding of what's going on and the reporting that they're doing, and the security team is effectively addressing those things that come up, the employees have less to worry about. They have less to worry about from the perspective of, is the company going to be solvent if they get hit by a ransomware attack, because they don't have to worry about getting hit by ransomware attacks if they are in fact being observant and being diligent in their efforts. And various other things like that, so on and so forth. So, and then of course there is a big reason why we do this, is because, yes, for compliance, any organization that needs to meet a compliance standard does have a requirement for security awareness and training. So that comes back to that old checkbox type thing, even though we don't want to view it as a checkbox type of scenario. So we talked about the why, we talked about the what, and with that what, we talked about a strategy a little bit. So what would a strategy look like? And, believe it or not, this is where we need to take a step away from technology, and we need to borrow some things from the academic higher education teaching type of world and better understand how an effective instruction tool would look. So if you're looking to evaluate a new tool or even install a new program, not software, but just an overall security awareness program in your organization, you want to take a look at probably these 5 methods of instruction. And whenever you can bundle them all together, you take these and they become an integral piece of an individual, and they are more apt to remember and apply what they're learning. If you take just one of these, which unfortunately is always much the case with a lot of the security awareness training program, they'll take one of these types of things and they will apply that only. And that's usually what you get when you have a checkbox type of scenario. Then the people that are receiving the training view the training as drudgery and one-time deals, and I have to do this, so I'm going to do it and get it off my back. All right, so let's take a look at these real quick. Direct instruction. That's when you've got the sage on the stage that's giving you the teaching. Right now is considered a direct instruction. So that's your traditional method. And unfortunately, a lot of security awareness training sessions stop at this level, or they may stop at the interactive instruction. Sometimes interactive instruction, which is typically a digital media transference of the information, is a replacement for direct instruction, only through a recorded digital media type platform. So those two kind of go together. But if you marry it, or one could replace the other. But if you marry them together, one to reinforce the other, developing an actual human relationship with the direct instruction, followed up by some interactive instruction through a digital media platform, the message becomes more resilient and becomes something that people remember. Indirect instruction is whenever you take a student-centered approach to learning, and that's where students they'll observe an action being conducted, and then they will take that and they will play around with it themselves, investigate, and draw their own conclusions from that. So in this type of situation, as well as experimental learning, coupling those two together, it's really a hands-on type of approach to teaching. So indirect instruction will allow the person to investigate the process, and experimental learning will allow them, for example, to get on a computer and actually click on a phishing email or observe a phishing email, or potentially, if you want to take it even further, actually address a hacked computer or show them what a ransomware type of attack actually looks like and what it takes to clean that up. Now, I will tell you, in the experimental learning and some of the indirect instruction aspects, you need to have those in a safe, self-contained environment, like a lab type of situation, where they cannot impact the rest of your environment that's out there. So yes, it is possible to take a piece of ransomware and drop it on a computer and let your staff members watch what happens to that, and watch what happens to recover from that, the efforts it takes to recover from that. But if you do so, make sure that it's done in a very, very, very careful way. So indirect instruction and experimental learning take it to that hands-on level. Independent study is kind of the piece that's thrown in between all those, that allows the person to take their study that's given through direct and interactive instruction and the hands-on learning and go further with that. And the reason I came to this one last is because independent study is frequently a combination of the two types of teaching that are going on there. They may take some of their hands-on learning and some of their interactive or direct instruction, their notes or the things that they're learning through the digital media, and they bring it all together in this spot, so that independent learning is done on their own time, at their own pace, at their own desire. And including, when I say own desire, I'm talking about the depth in which they go into it as well. So when you bring all 5 of these types of instructions together as part of your strategy, if this is the core of your strategy, you will have a much more robust, much more effective security awareness and training program. Now, it does sound like in order to have all 5 of them, you have to have a lot of hours poured into and a lot of things going on. You don't necessarily need to do that. But if you think about it, if you think that each one of these may be an hour's worth of time over the course of a 6-month period or even a year period, 5 hours out of 6 months, 5 hours out of the 2,080 hours that are allotted throughout of a 40-hour week that an individual would be working for you throughout a year period is not a lot of time. It's a very, very small percentage of time, but it has a huge impact on a lot of things. So, going back to what we were talking about, if this is your strategy and you can put it in as a piece of the culture, this type of instruction and strategy can head off many types of attacks. Upwards of 70 to 90% of the types of attacks just through awareness can be addressed, and that then cuts down on the cost of other pieces of software and added security and IT staff in order to recover from the damaging situations that might occur. All right. So once we've gone through our strategies, how do we measure our effectiveness? Well, certainly one of the ways that we can measure our effectiveness is to see that the insider threats, in other words, the mistakes, are down. So maybe start taking some statistics right now of how many mistakes have led to security events, security incidents, and security breaches over the past couple of years, and then watch that decline as you put in an effective strategy, because I'm betting that a lot of you have not been familiar with the 5-step strategy that I just talked about before. So if you put in an effective strategy, do those mistakes and those situations go down? Do you become a more secure environment as a result of the insider threats going away? So you could watch those numbers. Another way to look at it, are people positively talking about security and compliance? If they've had fun in the process, if they're actually learning, if they actually find value in what's presented to them, and they see the value and the time and efforts that's put together in that 5-step strategy, people are going to positively talk about security and compliance. If somehow you can move security and compliance into a baseline piece of your culture, and they are talking about, hey, I saw this thing pop up on my screen and I stopped ransomware from taking over our organization, or I was able to inform our security team and they were able to jump on something quickly and prevent an insider threat, a maybe a mispatched system, from having an impact upon our organization. The reality is, the most effective security is never recorded, because that means that your security is actually doing its job. So when an attack occurs, when the guy actually or the gal actually breaks into the home that's next to you, that's when all of the things have broken down. That's when the problems have occurred, and it becomes a part of the news. But if we can keep security out of the news, if by being effective and positively talking about security and compliance, then we know we're being effective. And do not discount the fact that people positively talking about security and compliance is a measure of effectiveness. Another one is, are reports of possible security events or situations being brought to light? If you create a culture that allows for people not to tattletale on situations or not to rat people out, but to effectively inform that there is a security hole or security problem over here, and you can see those bug reports, or you can see those security reports coming in, that allows your organization to go address them quickly and effectively. If you see those coming in and arise as a result of having the 5-step strategy in place, then again, that you're being effective. A tried and true method is to do quizzes and trivia events. Now, you could do quizzes at the end of software programs, or even at the end of the direct instruction type of situation, or the different types of instruction methods, just to make sure somebody got it. But I would ask you to take it a step further. Have a trivia game show and have prizes at the end of that, where people can be a part of it and understand through having fun. Those are the best types of events that are out there. Remove the quizzes and go for the trivia, and you also develop a little bit of competition, fun type of competition within the organization. And then finally, are you fighting people to complete the SAT, the security awareness training, or show up? If you are doing that, if you're fighting it, then you're not being effective. And that is one way to measure your effectiveness. If people are not completing their SATs and not showing up for it in great numbers, then you're not being effective. But if it's the other way around and you don't have to go to managers to escalate to get people to do their training, then you know you're being effective with it. So these are just some of the ways to be effective, and every strategy will have its own KPIs, or key performance indicators that will allow us to know whether they're effective or not. So let's make you aware of some of the tools that are available out there for security awareness and training. There's plenty of independent software tools that are out there, and I'm not going to list each one of these here, but each of these types of software tools have videos built in and have pre-developed content that allows for some sense of fun and interaction to go with it, because each one of these guys, they're out there, they're competing with one another for the best product, and trying to trying to gain your dollars for commercial off-the-shelf software like this. Another option is to go with higher education, not just university or college, but many community colleges now have great security programs, because they've seen students coming out of high school and knowing that they can get a certain set of certifications from someplace like CompTIA or SANS Institute, and be able to enter the workforce very quickly and effectively through a 2-year type of degree, or even continuing education type of degree situation, or non-degree situation. So community colleges are seeing a huge opportunity there in cybersecurity, knowing that our positions in cybersecurity are not being filled by the people that we have already in the pipeline that they need to put more in. So they're offering a lot of great courses. I would recommend that you look at your community college, and you look at that possibly as part of your independent study program. If you've got somebody who maybe is not part of your security team, but really has a propensity to and a desire to be a part of and learn more about security, send them to a community college class. I'm telling you, these things are cheap. Depending on where you're at, these things can be anywhere from free to just a few $100s. It's some of the best investment that you might have in an individual, because then you could put it on them to come back and do training on their team or within the organization as well, and be that direct instructor as a result of having the community college involvement. So here's some different opportunities for you to take a look at. Here's the thing though, if you go at it on your own, you create your own program based on the strategy that I provided to you a few moments ago, you'd really do need to take into account that an effective program does take quite a bit of effort to put together, but it's also something that is probably on the cheaper side of things. So if you're in an organization that is tight on money, or is small but yet wants to be very effective and can't afford some of those software products, or maybe can't afford to send somebody to a SANS class or whatnot, then here's some ways that you can address this by going at it on your own. So first of all, if you are going to do that, you need to consider the fact that the teaching factors. Does your teacher have the knowledge and enthusiasm to do this? Do you have a security professional on staff, or somebody that can understand the material and effectively communicate that for you? You cannot get somebody up there that's boring, that has no enthusiasm, and doesn't know how to use their voice, into intonations and different factors to deliver a message, especially in a direct instruction type of situation. Also, we need to be looking at our curriculum. What is it we're teaching? Are we teaching something that does apply to your business and your environment? Or are we just teaching security? I would say that if you're just teaching security, you're not being effective. But if you're teaching things that are relevant and real and authentic to your business structure and your business vertical and environment, then you're doing great. Also consider a factor of assessment. You need to understand how assessing a teacher and the curriculum both impact. And if you look at it as a cycle, you'll see that you teach it, or you develop the curriculum, you teach it, and then you assess it, and you repeat after you add the assessments and the critique and the criticism from the assessments in there. Your teachers and your organizations that put these together on your own should be creative. Think about fun ways to apply this instead of just the boring routine ways. And then we talk about evaluating progress. So this is different than assessment. So assessment is actually assessing the curriculum and assessing the teacher and assessing the delivery mechanism. We're evaluating the progress. It identifies how far we are along in some of the things we talked about before. Are they talking about security? Is security taking root inside of your culture, inside of your organization? And analyzing the content is a factor of assessment as well. But again, the assessment that I talked about under considering factors is assessing what exists. Analyzing content is more along the lines of looking, is it real and relevant to today? Or do you need to bring in new content? Do you need to exit and retire certain types of content in order to remain real and effective? So somehow you need to make sure you have and ensure the understanding, and then of course test remembering. If we've talked about that as part of our strategies before. So if you're going to go at it on your own, these are key factors in doing that. Now, if you're going to go at it on your own, there's phases of teaching. And you just can't wake up one morning. If you've never done this kind of thing, you can just not wake up one morning and say, hey, I'm just going to go up here and do security awareness and training. Putting together this conversation that we're having right now, which is about a 40 to 45 minute presentation, took about 4 hours worth of effort to make sure that I had boned up on my material, put together these slides, and done some practice on it. And that's what we're talking about under this preparation phase. So for every hour of delivery that you have, you're probably looking at anywhere from 2 to 4 hours worth of prep. So you have to factor that in whenever you have somebody that's doing this for you. And it may be that, if you're going to use somebody that's internal, it's already on your security team, you've got to carve that time out. Or you may look towards hiring a virtual teacher, if you will, or somebody to come in and take care of this for you. But the phase one is your preparation. And that's where the person needs to focus in and be able to identify what they need to teach. Develop some illustrations. Earlier on in this program, I talked about the kid in the road. I talked about the person walking around the house. It took some time to think about that and come up with the illustration that's involved in there. Just like building a paper for college, you need to outline the content. What is it exactly that we're going to deliver here? Put in logical steps to make sure that when we get to the end, we've arrived at a point that needs to be where we need to be. And then you need to practice it and edit it as a result of that practice. So then once you're done with that, in phase two, you get to delivery. And that's where we're at today. And hopefully I've been able to clearly communicate to you. I've got an ability to vary the communications through that strategy. So we're here with this varied communication, I'm talking to you. We're also putting it on a PowerPoint in front of you. So we're kind of mixing it up like the bowl of cake here on the left-hand side. We're kind of mixing all the ingredients that we got in phase one preparation, and now we're delivering it to you, and we're hopefully using all of these methods here to do so. And then finally, when we're done with this, I'm going to evaluate how well it's done. And there's going to be various KPIs that we're looking at. And you need to do the same. You need to evaluate your program to make sure that the training was complete, that and make sure, most importantly, that your delivery person or your delivery team is open to both critique and criticism. And people don't frequently understand the difference between those. Critique is often a method of saying, hey, this could have been better, and that but it was delivered okay, and it's taken in a non-negative terms. But criticism is typically in a negative tone. You did this wrong, and it should have been over here. And your teams who are delivering need to be open to both of those. If they are not open to honest criticism as well as critique, then your team will not get better. So make sure that they're open to both of those. And then evaluation, if you're delivering an actual, 5 strategy program, at the end of the year, at the end of each session, give an evaluation sheet so that you can go back and understand how well you did and what you can do to do better. including study. If you are a true teacher, you never stop studying, which is why academics move from, just bachelor's degrees up to master's degrees and then up to PhDs, or what we call jokingly and in fun in the academic world, piled higher and deeper, because all they do is they continually study in order to try and be better. So those are important pieces of any type of teaching. Those are the phases that you should be looking at if you're going to do it internally. So the big question is, how often should we do security awareness and training? Any compliance. So, I told you earlier that one of the key factors in why we do SAT is for compliance. Well, officially, we need to do security awareness and training once a year. Okay, that is every single compliance factor that's out there is going to require that every individual within your organization does it at least once a year. And those that are in special projects or special access situations may have to do it more frequently, even for compliance. So let's just start there and say it's got to be done at least once a year. All right. So then the next step is how much further do you take it, depending on the culture of your organization, how you have that 5 strategy scenario set up. My personal opinion is that we should do something that's related to security awareness and training every single month. It allows for that to be on the front burner every single month. And again, your delivery mechanisms can be different every time. Sometimes there's subtle delivery methods. Sometimes it's a blog post or a vlog, a video blog that you put out there. And, sometimes it's 5 minutes. Sometimes it takes 30 minutes to go through it and read it. But if you're doing something every single month, then you are right in front of your teams and right in front of their minds when those show up. The one that you do officially once per year, you should record that through some sort of an official recording mechanism that is sufficient for your auditors to know. Sometimes that's a person wet ink signing off. Sometimes it's an electronic method. If you use some of the software like KnowBe4, you can actually check and take care of that through those types of products. On the once a month type stuff, just simply some evidence showing that you delivered it and that it was available for people to look at is typically enough for auditors to take a look at, and also typically enough for KPIs. So if you're putting up a blog post, for example, you could say, hey, this particular topic garnered 35 hits today, and the next topic a month from now garnered 75 hits. So you could see that as a KPI. Another thing that you should do that I don't have written on here that should be part of your official once a year is every single time a person starts, the first thing that they should do, in some cases, even before they gain access to the network, is complete a security awareness and training program. Some companies rightfully do not even give access credentials off to someone until they've completed that training. You should and you must do that security awareness training before they really get started with their job once the new hire exists. And then finally, every opportunity you get, talk about security. Have that as part of your culture. Have it embedded within your organization as part of the culture. That's the way that it becomes forefront. That's the way that you continue to have the eyes and the ears that are out there that are helping your security team be able to focus on the things that are actually wrong and not the red herrings that they get pulled into way too frequently by automated tools and AI type of tools, machine learning type of tools, things like that. Listen to the people that are in the field and train them to be your eyes and ears. The human mind and the human ability to detect something that's wrong is far superior than artificial intelligence and machine learning, in my opinion. I've had much greater effect on my security programs, whether they're here at DataBank or at other scenarios, by teaching the people in the field to be security minded and security, thinking about the security out there. And one of the ways I do that to make it fun is that I literally grab do some direct instruction and then move into that hands-on type of instruction, the experimental instruction and so on and so forth. And I take my class, if you will, around the building, and I point out all of the security mechanisms like CCTV and describe what they're used for and show the back end of what the CCTV is showing. I take them out front and I show them the K4 or K12 rating fencing and talk talk about why one is more important than another and why we might place K-12 at a street corner and K-4 at the back of the building instead, where there's no vehicles that are available. By the way, if you're curious about that, K-4, K-12 rating is a State Department rating on fencing, and the higher the number, the more strength that's on the fencing. So that's why you would put it at the corner of the building where a car might ram it. And be able to force through it versus something in the backside that they may not be able to get through. I also talk about things like, walking around. I talk to them about things that they may not realize are security protocols, such as putting a large planter in front of a door or a couple of large planters in front of a door that will prevent a vehicle from being able to ram the door, or that we've spaced the lighting out in the parking lot far enough apart that a helicopter could land in the parking lot if needed, if there was a medical emergency. I was just talking to a church about that this past week, where as they're developing their new parking lot, I suggested that they do that. And they looked at me and said, why? And I said, well, you have 5,000 people that go to church here. What happens if you have an active shooter situation, or you have a situation where an individual needs to have the helicopter transport them to the hospital? You have lighting that's forcing down onto where that landing spot is, and you have it spaced far enough apart that the helicopter pilot doesn't have to worry about coming straight down onto the spot in which you paint onto the parking lot. That would allow them to do that. And it just, all the bells and whistles just went off in their head at that point. I was able to effectively teach them about how they can have all the things that they need for code, and yet at the same time have this magnificent, really piece of security and health function without them having to do anything different and cost them anything more within their budget. It's just a matter of spacing. So these are the kinds of things that you can do in your security awareness and training programs, is you can show and tell and allow people to experiment with these kinds of things. All right, so thank you for joining us for this, and understanding that security awareness and training is not just a checkbox for auditors. It can be an effective tool to mitigate attacks on your environment and help users do their job better, help the well-being and the culture of your organization. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take those right now, and I'll turn it back over to Christian.
Great, thank you, Mark. Yes, so if there are any questions, feel free to add them into the little Q&A box down there at the bottom of your screen. It looks like we've got one coming in right now. It says, how can I cost effectively improve security awareness?
Well, how much money you got? It's probably one thing you can look at is set a budget. A lot of places don't set a budget. There's a couple of different ways to do this. If you need to, you can. We talked about the training through a community college. You could send a number of your people to a community college, or a lot of community colleges will establish a course for larger companies or conglomerations of companies within their towns or their areas, and they'll send the instructor on site to your facility. So if you've got 30 or 40 people that you want to have some direct instruction to launch your program, for example, reach out to your community college and say, hey, I've got a training room. Can you send your instructor here as an adjunct professor? We've got 40 captive people. We've got 30 captive people, whatever number it is that we're going to do. And can you compress your training from a typical academic 16-week scenario, 3 times a week, 1 hour a day type thing, down to a 40-hour week, 40-hour period within a week, and get it all done in one shot. So there's different creative ways like that you could reach out to other organizations. Another organization that I'm aware of, and in fact, DataBank does this as well, is subscribe to a service like the SANS Institute or CompTIA that allows individuals to do independent study within a large volume of not just security, but IT functions as well. And so you can get the value of not only security, but IT training or other types of training involved. So lots of different ways to do it. You just need to be creative.
Great, thank you. All right, next question. What is the most important security awareness topic right now?
Wow, that's a tough question to respond to because there's so many things that are going on out there right now. So I'm gonna give you two. One is ransomware, and specifically with ransomware, how to prevent it by preventing phishing attacks, by recognizing phishing attacks and getting rid of them outside of your email. That's number one. And with that underneath there is how to address incident response with with a ransomware situation. So for example, if a phishing attack is successful, ransomware starts kicking off, what do you do as the end user immediately in order to prevent that from spreading? And typically, just so you know, typically the answer is pull the plug on the computer, get it off the network. And you have to be careful with that with laptops and other types of computers that have batteries these days. Just pulling the plug out of the wall doesn't shut down the computer. So you've got to figure out how to, what's the most effective way to do it. But ransomware is one. And as much as I hate to say it, um, unfortunately, right now in our very politicized environment, polarized and politicized environment, we need to be looking at mental health and other personnel security matters right now, and training our people on how to recognize when somebody is in a distress situation or reaching that area and they don't yet know it, especially, or if they've reached there, being able to pull them back from that. Working at home for the last year and a half with COVID, there's been lots of situations where, spouses or partners are together when they're not usually together. And some people have been put into situations forcibly by their offices where they used to come to office to get away from things that are going on at home, and now they're embedded in that at home situation their entire existence. And so those are weighing very heavily on people right now, and is something that we probably need to be. I know for a fact, not probably, let me just be direct, is we need to be training each other on how to be caring towards one another and how to be concerned about one another, and kind to one another. And that is a security issue. I've been talking about that with lots of CISOs. It is a security issue simply because that anywhere from 70 to 90% of security breaches are a result of errors. And when somebody has something else on their mind, when they have a burden on their shoulders, emotionally or mentally, that is getting in the way of them performing at a high performance level, that will result in those errors. So it is a security issue for us to be concerned about somebody in their mental health.
Great. Thank you. All right, next question. In regards to COVID, how do we incorporate different learning styles of an individual into the training in a COVID work from home world that relies on independent study?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I talked about the five stages or five strategies of tackling security awareness and training. And in the COVID world, when we're all locked out of our offices, which thankfully we're kind of coming to the end of that, but when that exists, or if it exists again, that direct instruction becomes hard. Now we can do direct instruction through this type of means right here. So that's one way to do it. Again, it's like I answered earlier, you have to be creative. Perhaps you get a few people outside of their home in a socially distanced type of situation outside of a building, and you do one of those walkthroughs like I was talking about a few moments ago, where you walk around the building, you point out security, that kind of just doing that, like a field trip kind of thing, could address mental health issues. It could address a whole bunch of different manners or different situations. But the bottom line is just be creative. Think about all five of those pieces of the strategy. Say, okay, we're going to have a direct, 30-minute direct Zoom type of situation for training today, and then tomorrow we're going to do a little bit of hands-on experimental instruction and indirect instruction. And we're going to come in, but we're going to be outside. We're going to come into the office, or we're going to be in the office, but we're going to be socially distanced for those that are comfortable, and those that are not, maybe they can come in and do that same exercise by themselves. Then there's the independent instruction you can do anywhere, and then on upwards. So being creative is the key way to accomplish it.
Great. Do we have any other questions? Taking a look. All right, it looks like, oh, there is one that came through. If I have no program today, what is the first step I should take?
That's a great question as well. If you've got no program today, then I would argue you're probably in a vertical that doesn't require a compliance, or you're ignoring the compliance scenario, or you've been dinged by an auditor. So probably the first thing that you should address immediately is some sort of direct instruction in order to address the compliance need, or in order just to get something on the table there. I would tackle that either through hiring a consultant to come in and do a direct instruction for an hour on, like we're doing here. Another method would be to get everybody in front of some webinars, allow them to choose from 5 or 10 different kinds of webinars that you pick up. This one, for example, is one of them that could be used. It's been recorded. You could play this one back. And this could be the kickoff for your security awareness and training, because we talk about the what and the why we do this and the creative ways that we go about it. There's just a plethora of online stuff. So if you're not doing anything today, use some YouTube videos that are out there. Go and, if you're not a security professional and you're trying to figure out exactly which one would be effective, get a hold of us. I'd be happy to throw a couple of YouTube videos your way that would at least get you off the ground while you're developing your five flavor strategy that we talked about earlier. But do something, because having this in the culture, and with all the things that are going on with ransomware and different kinds of attacks right now, do something. Specific topics that you can look at that are very effective is anti-phishing. Anti-phishing leads to ransomware. So you could have anti-phishing for a 20 or 30-minute YouTube or webinar discussion, and then move straight into another one just like it about ransomware or something along that way. You can't go wrong by starting that way, because even the smallest ounce of instruction and new material that somebody gets in their head on those kinds of things is the seed that's planted. And you never know how it's going to grow, but just the smallest amount is the seed that's planted. And that's what you need to do. If you're doing nothing today, just do something.
Thank you. This next question goes, you adjusted a little bit, but it says, where can IT engineers or other security adjacent folks go to get the latest deep knowledge?
Okay, so the deep knowledge would come from places like the SANS Institute, or from CompTIA, or if they're an IT person, for example, that's using Juniper or Cisco routers or whatnot, you can get some deep knowledge from the vendors as well. So these are places that I would go to for the deep knowledge. Now, if you're a security professional and you're looking for deep knowledge, NIST, NSA, and DoD all have some Department of Homeland Security as well, DHS, all have some great tools and training materials. And also, don't forget about InfraGard, which is a not-for-profit independent entity that is tied with the FBI. And so you get a lot of deep knowledge from that product as well, being able to get direct information from the FBI about latest attacks that are going on, plus all the training that they have going on around the country. Those are all things that you can go from a deep knowledge perspective.
Great. The next one, security people are not known to be fun. How can we make this fun? What does DataBank do?
Oh no, we're not known to be fun, not in public, and we stay away from being fun on the cameras. I was at a wedding this weekend of one of my best friend, and while all the kids were out there on the dance floor having fun, I'm just sitting back there in the chair. But as soon as all the kids left and the videos and the cell phones went away, I was out there on the dance floor having fun. So my point there is make it a safe place to have that fun. Let the security people actually tell what I was in the Navy, so I call them sea stories. Allow them to tell their sea stories about things that they've done. Allow them to talk about the security things that they've been out there, and have some open and fun things like that. I could tell stories about doing forensics and putting people in jail, for example. And every single time I tell those stories, whether I'm intending to be fun or not, I have the eyes all looking at me going, you what, what happened there, and if you tell those stories in detail, those are the fun types, those are the fun times when you're relaying that. So that's one way of doing it. I talked earlier about the trivia game. Find out what makes your team tick. Some of the teams are that are more in established, larger, more traditional organizations. A trivia game might be the way to go. Everybody gets into a conference room and they have a little bit of a trivia back and forth and over a lunch and learn type of situation, throw some prizes around, some gift cards, things like that. But if you're in a little bit more of an eclectic type of organization, find a way to pull it up, some video games that involve security and security training. There's plenty of that kind of stuff out there that if you know what you're looking for, you could point it out. And then another one of my favorite ones is, especially around the holiday time of year when we're all kind of getting together with holiday parties. And sometimes we do that, just on our teams, individually, throw in a security related movie and invite one of the security professionals in to kind of, as I was talking about earlier, whenever I did my little show and tell, my dog and pony show, going outside and doing the field trip walkthrough, have the security professional, point things out in the movie that are security related, and make fun and allow them to make fun of themselves, allow people to make fun of them. One of my favorite movies, two favorite movies to do that with, is War Games, where you got the traditional hackers going on across phone lines, and another one's called Sneakers with Robert Redford, where he penetrates a facility from a physical security perspective, and there's a lot of scenes inside that where you can really talk about how, okay, that's fake, there's no way, that's all in the movies, but this kind of thing here, that is real. Here's how I've done that in the past, and things like that. So there are fun ways to do that, sharing C stories, showing movies. Again, it's all about being creative. It's all about being in a safe zone, if you will, and being creative about it.
Great, thank you. Gave me some great ideas for events. All right, we've got a few minutes left, so if anyone has any other questions, feel free to plug them in here. We will put the recording of this webinar up if you want to watch it back. Next question we have. Thanks so much, Mark. This is super insightful. Will your team be sending the recording off via email? Oh, yes. I just addressed that. So we will be sending this recording off via email. We'll also have it on the website, databank.com. So you can watch this back if you need to, or if you'd like to. A lot of information.
Absolutely, we would, yes. All right.
Great.
That sounds like it's about it, Christian. So thank you for the time that I've been able to spend with you. Hopefully it has been a little bit fun and I haven't been as a cis-no for you, or a CISO that's dry. Hopefully there's some things you've learned. Christian, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you for those you've attended, for sticking around and listening.
Yes, thank you. And Mark, as always, you are the most fun security person that I know. So that concludes today's webinar. Please feel free to follow us on LinkedIn for more upcoming webinars and in-person events. You can also find events on our website as well as the recording of this at databank.com. If you click under the events link, you'll see other events that we have coming up, and feel free to reach out with any questions you might have. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time.